Hello, everyone, and welcome to United Way. Live United. I'm Terry Westerfield, and joining me today, I have friends in from Hands On New Orleans. And I want to welcome to the program Christopher Cameron. Chris is the executive director of Hands On New Orleans, and I'm also glad to have Peyton Juneau with us. Peyton is the Hands On project supervisor. I'm glad you're both here because you do such a great job. And United Way and Hands On are, we talked about this, Chris, we're kind of in the dating phase and moving forward, I think.
Absolutely. We've been very excited. For about the past year, Hands On New Orleans and United Way have been in great conversations about a partnership that we're going to be entering into so that we can really, both organizations have got a great history of doing a lot of good in the community. And so we see only positive things coming forward in the future.
It is just such a natural because we believe that when you invest in United Way of Southeast Louisiana, you're supporting all these programs for your children, to your grandparents, that can really make our region a safer and a better place to live, work, and raise our families. And we celebrate at United Way, all of us, getting together and being part of a team and a culture that continues to help change lives and shape communities. And you do that through change. And that means it takes all of us. We all need to give, to advocate, and yes, to volunteer. And who better to volunteer with than Hands On New Orleans?
Absolutely. Hands On has a long history of engaging volunteers. Since our inception in 2006, we've engaged about 35,000 volunteers who've given about 600,000 hours of their time to the city with about probably about a $13 million economic impact through volunteer time and savings. So, I mean, volunteering is a great way. I think personally, people feel great when they give back to their community, when they're able to help others in need, but collectively the impact really is quite staggering.
And I think what's interesting about this, and I want for you to explain to our listening audience today, that you are here to stay. After Katrina, we had so many wonderful people who did come to help, and we could not be where we are today without them. But as we've changed, as we've knocked on wood and been able to rebuild lives and communities, some of the groups have left town, they've gone on, they've moved on, but there's still such a need for volunteerism and to continue our rebirth, our revitalization, and to look down that path to where we want to go next.
And really our mission has always been so community focused. As an organization whose mission is to engage and empower and transform the local community through volunteer service, it's really important that we not only work with peer-to-peer community members and active residents, but also local nonprofit organizations. By kind of sewing ourselves into that local scene, we can support great work that our partners do as well as great work that local residents are passionate about and can follow and pursue.
Now let's talk about how we get together. We were just teasing a moment ago how we're kind of dating because we're developing this partnership and want to continue our good work together in the community. But others are out there listening. Is it individuals? Is it corporations? Are we talking Girl Scouts? How do people get in touch? What do they do? And they say, well, I want to volunteer. They come to you. Explain what happens.
So we strive to be a one-stop shop for volunteering and supporting that activity across the region in Southeast Louisiana, which is why having the partnership and collaborative efforts in unison with United Way is so key for us right now and expanding to the next 8 years of our growth as an organization, and really making sure that we allow local residents and visiting volunteers, whether you're from a corporation or a church group or university, learn there's a lot more diversity in New Orleans and how to give back and how to volunteer.
So if they, well, go ahead, Chris. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I absolutely agree with Peyton. And I think, when most people say, I think I'm going to volunteer, they're going to go to kind of four, what I always call the hot topics. Mm-hmm. They're thinking we're going to do a home rebuild, go to a food bank, go to a shelter, work with children. Those are all fantastic causes. And while certainly we support all of that, part of the uniqueness of the Hands On New Orleans model is really integrating ourselves and supporting other smaller nonprofits and some of the work that they do. As an example, Save Our Cemeteries. They're very much into the historic preservation of part of our cultural heritage here in New Orleans. Now, they're a group of trained specialists, right? So you can't just go volunteer to restore,
these famous monuments.
The famous monuments. However, unskilled volunteers can go out and do a lot of the prep work. And so we have a very successful partnership. About once a month, we end up with 50 volunteers or so. And that's a way that people can give back to the community that they necessarily wouldn't think about just on their own devices. And so, as Peyton said, we really strive to be that one-stop shop. People can log on to our website at www.handsonneworleans.org. Very front page, first page is an opportunity calendar. It's completely customizable. Someone could log on and say, I can only volunteer on a Tuesday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., and it will show every opportunity out there in the community for them to get engaged with.
And that's what's so important, because some people refrain from volunteering. They've got the itch. They want to do it. They want to give back. But they think, oh, I don't have the time, or my time isn't their time, because maybe they work a strange shift, or because kids are in the picture, or they're taking care of elderly. Who knows? But they think, oh, there's nothing that I could do. And you're showing that there is. And sometimes it is something as simple as, yes, helping pull up some weeds, cut some grass,
Absolutely.
do some things that otherwise it needs to be done. And I love the way, because it goes back to the mission that Peyton was talking about, too.
I've always believed that it's just inherent in people to help each other. And so, a lot of times our day-to-day, we kind of get caught up in routine and this and that kind of get in the way of that true spirit of, being a fellow human being. But I think the programs and way that Hands On New Orleans and United Way can help people learn about more volunteer opportunities across the city, it kind of removes any excuse you can have in terms of what limitations you think you might have and the ability for yourself or your friends to work together to help the community.
Correct. And I think the other piece of that, too, is that people often think, well, I'm not good with a paintbrush, or I'm not going to pick up a hammer. And certainly there are volunteers who are not happy unless they come out of their volunteer event covered in filth and muck and paint. We understand that. Those are the hard-working go-getters.
They want that tactile experience.
Correct.
Literally.
And I said, but we have volunteers who, under no circumstances, are they going to break a sweat. But that doesn't mean that they can't give back, because there are plenty of opportunities for people to mentor children, to read to first, second, and third graders. And maybe if it's only once a week or once a month, there really are adding capacity to the program simply by, if we engage 50 volunteers, it doesn't need to be this ongoing deep commitment. We just need 50 people who would be available once a month. And then we can build a program from that so that the children are always benefiting by having an adult mentor present.
Now, that is something that is extremely interesting. And go back, if you will, a little bit, Chris, because you're talking about children. When we say that, we don't want just anybody to volunteer. And by that, I mean, we want the help. The community needs your help. They need your service. But we also want to be sure that we have the right folks doing the right kind of job, whether it be manual labor, whether it be working maybe in the office of a nonprofit, but also when you're working with children, too, because there are safeguards for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And many of our community partners do have, especially any work with children, it will be a short interview process, potentially a background check for the volunteers. And then quite often there will be a short orientation and training for the volunteers prior to their actual service, so that the volunteer is fully acclimated. They understand what the goals of the program are, what the do's and don'ts of volunteering, if you will.
And really, a lot of the value of our listing of our partners' projects across the city, if you have an inkling of something you want to explore and kind of personally develop in your volunteer service, you can kind of try a few different projects out, find which ones you like, and maybe stick with one that really means a lot to you. Or if you just know exactly what you want to nail down and really commit to, we can actually have a conversation with you and kind of help you navigate and match make to where you find that perfect fit at the outset and really make a difference.
Well, Chris, you gave the example of Save Our Cemeteries, which is a group that's been around a long time. Chris, Peyton, either one of you too, you're talking about this customizable or buildable, but also that it's on the website already. And can you name some of the other projects that are there that people are looking for volunteers, or things that are upcoming? I mean, do you have a calendar? Is there a big event that you know will be coming, and you know you're going to need, say, XYZ amount of volunteers, and they're going to have varied when I say very, the V-A-R, as opposed to very, the V-E-R-Y, different things to do that are needed. I mean, we have different skill sets and different people need to be able to fill them.
Sure. Every month we have a chock-a-block schedule and calendar full of opportunities, from helping out fellow nonprofits like Unity Housing that fights homelessness across the city, including the Covenant House, which specifically targets youth homelessness, groups like Save Our Cemeteries and other smaller nonprofits, a lot of community centers in terms of the Ferret Neighborhood Housing Services that do community support work,
Great
Broadmoor,
folks.
really any sector or section of New Orleans, no matter where you live, what neighborhood, there's an opportunity to find.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of opportunity, especially upcoming in the spring, as our weather hopefully will get warmer soon. But we do a lot of work and support of urban gardens. Part of the issue in New Orleans is that if you are tracking poverty and impoverished low-income neighborhoods, and then also tracking access to fresh fruits and vegetables, you see an amazing similarity and a connection, quite honestly.
Food deserts of sorts. Yeah.
Essentially, people are living in food deserts. And so there have been a lot of neighborhood associations who have come together, and it's kind of a 1-2 punch, and it's a very exciting thing. They will take over what was a blighted Katrina property, get it completely cleared, and then create garden beds. And so that neighbors can adopt a plot, they can grow their own fruits and vegetables. And so you've kind of got this 1-2 punch of we've fought blight and then also improving access to food resources. So again, I mean, those are great ways that anybody who's out there, maybe a recent retiree who really is into gardening, it's a very great way to give back, to the community.
And I think our friends down at lower9.org had done some food gardens as well, and the people share and the bounty actually help each other. And I don't know, but if they do it, but in some cases they even have the fresh fruit and vegetables usually, but they could even sell if needed be at a farmer's market or something. So that's a kind of profit idea there too.
Yeah, they do. Lower9.org has a couple. There's the Backyard Gardeners Network also on that side of the canal. We also help support the Grow Dat Youth Farm inside of City Park, which just recently started doing a lot more vending of the produce that they grow with their youth that they engage. And they actually have a program where they do semesters of instruction and kind of life-building lessons for those gardeners out of high school age. And we have a lot of other just smaller plots that are independently run by local residents. And speaking of an immediate project, if somebody wants to get involved for MLK Day this year, one of our 2 key MLK Day projects that Hands On New Orleans will be coordinating is going to be with our partners at the New Orleans Women's Art Collective and Sancore Trade and Arts. They have a new space right across from the Treme Center on Villeray, that beautiful new city civic center. And there's a plot of land that they're just starting to develop and kind of get ready for the growing season in the spring. And we're going to be helping them do some garden beds, do some painting on site, and really just help spruce up that space so it can become a really vibrant hub in that neighborhood on Villeray.
Now, again, go online for this, or is it, do you sometimes take calls? If people want more information, what do you suggest, Peyton?
So generally for that project and any other that you're interested in, you can email volunteer@handsonneworleans.org. Also, on our website, there's a banner link with logo for MLK Day, as well as a searchable little engine tool that you can just type in MLK, and it'll populate with every single MLK project going on across the city during that week of service that we tend to profile and highlight every year. So we try to help residents make it a day on, not a day off in their community.
That's fabulous. And that is, again, sticking with what we abide by in United Way, which is to give, advocate, and volunteer.
Absolutely. And Terry, too, just for all of the listeners who may not have access to computer resources, they can always give Hands On New Orleans a call, and we are happy to connect them. Our phone number is 504-827-6854, and that's Hands On New Orleans.
And I know that sometimes they're talking about voluntourism. Is this good for us? Is it good for them?
Absolutely. Hands On focuses obviously on individuals. We focus on what we call organizations. It could be a college group, it could be a civic association, a religious group, and then, of course, all of our corporate partners. And we do both the volunteerist groups. These are the conventioneers who are coming in and really want to give back. Part of the Hands On model and what's unique is that we can completely customize an event for a date and time. So whether they have 300 people for 3 hours or they have 20 people for 1 hour, we're able to create a project for them. If for some reason they can't leave the convention center or their hotel, we also have very unique projects. We have mobile volunteer projects, and that could be packing personal care kits for the homeless. It could be packing school kits for needy school children. Sometimes it often involves creating really colorful and inspirational murals that are then redonated back in to the community. So what I find most interesting is in interacting with the volunteers. Everyone who's volunteered knows that it makes you personally feel good. But if you are in college, and let's say that you don't know what you want to be, like most of us, when you grow up, right? Volunteerism is a great way, and Peyton kind of alluded this, to trying out different skill sets, finding where your passion is, learning new things as well for young professionals in the workplace. And Terry, certainly United Way has done this and engaged a lot of our younger kind of up-and-coming corporate and community leaders in the workplace. They could be sitting there. They're like, I just graduated. I've got all this school debt. I'm thinking about getting married, or I'm just about to start a family, or I'm buying a house. Maybe I can't give financially right now. But I do have time and I do have talent. And I think that's where the partnership with Hands On comes in, because it is so important for that person to be involved in their community. And it's not necessarily always financially.
It isn't, because you're tapping that other treasure. And it is, or treasures plural, because as you said, it's that time, it's that talent.
Absolutely.
Getting in there. And there's something invigorating. It is just when you've spent the day and you see the faces of the children that you've just been with, because, as you were mentioned, maybe there was a mobile backpacking type of situation at one of the conventions, and you're helping feed children or giving them things that otherwise their parents or guardians could never afford, and they're going home. They're going. You know they're going to be able to eat over the weekend, or with the homeless folks, or some of the others that have come in. Those who are trying to make a better life for themselves, who are in our many different counseling organizations, and just what a bar of soap and a razor can do. Really uplifting things like this.
And we don't call ourselves Hands On for nothing. We strive to make sure that all of our projects, you really get a true sense of the value and impact that you're making. You can kind of help wrestle with some of these issues and help move the needles in the right direction in the city.
Absolutely. And for some of our volunteers, we had a corporate group, Wells Fargo, who did a mobile projects, and it was specifically benefiting one charter management organization. But the volunteers were, I think, utterly flabbergasted to learn the kits that they were building were actually going to be going to nearly the 20% of that one charter management organizations whose children transition into and out of homelessness in any given school year. And that it's often the result of one parent or one income earner in the household suddenly got laid off, affected by the poor economy. And, we have families that are living paycheck to paycheck and are literally one paycheck away from transitioning into homelessness. And I think that when we don't necessarily think about homelessness in that way as the working poor, families. And so again, those are ways that volunteers, I think, get moved and kind of become more conscious of the needs of New Orleanians.
Well, I think that's it. We've all had this discussion before, that too often everyone thinks, that's somebody else who's going to need that service. Someone else is going to need that hand up. Someone else, not me. And then you realize every time you do invest in Hands On, in United Way, in any of the programs that are out there, you could be helping the guy next door, someone down the street, down the bayou, across it could wind up being a family member. It could be you.
And I think residents in New Orleans know that perhaps better than many parts across the country. It's inherent, and I think especially in local New Orleanians, to do that giving back, because we know that we're all vulnerable and anything can happen at any moment in terms of needing a helping hand, like you said.
Well, and I think, too, the other piece for me is that when you think about, do I give back? Do I give my time, my talent, my financial support? Yes or no? That's a decision that you need to make as an individual or a family. But I always encourage people to think about it this way. What loss is going to come out of that? there is no downside to getting involved. I mean, every time, our education system gets stronger, our workforce is more prepared, we are reducing blight, we are making neighborhoods safe. We are creating just a more vibrant city, and everyone wins in that situation.
Well, and that goes back to the United Way mission, at least ours is, to increase the organized capacity of people to become more independent and self-sufficient. Think of all the good, as you're talking about, that you can do. We can become self-reliant. We know that we can build something better, stronger, whether it be ourselves, whether it be our community in the broad scope, or just as we see all of Southeast Louisiana continue to move forward and increase the opportunities for everyone who lives here.
Absolutely.
And one of those amazing success stories that we like to tell is that the same charter management group, that school that we assisted with the homelessness care kits for some of their young students, they actually just that same semester had their very first senior graduate who graduated a year early and had already been accepted to a university out of state in the Northeast. So he was already striving and achieving and had gotten that kind of renewed support system that the New Orleans education system is kind of being, infused with.
Well, that's it. The difference that one individual can make just handing out to someone else. I mean, literally touching hands. I don't mean a hand out, as I was saying that way, but just coming together, learning from each other. And as you said, all that takes is a little bit of time. You don't have to be a wealthy person. You don't have to have all the time in the world, but the time that you have and you make the most of it
absolutely
can be the most to someone else.
And, I always encourage listeners to think about their own life experiences. Maybe you are a retiree. You have got a lifetime of experiences and lessons to pass on to someone. And, you never know. You never know just that simplest of conversation that you wouldn't even, think twice about with the mentee, but that conversation is what helped make that person make a different choice, or it turned a corner, for them.
And it's contagious, because I think when you have those conversations with people outside of your sphere, outside of your kind of demographic, it kind of circles back on you as well, and you have a new perspective, just like that, young man or woman might have a new perspective about what is possible and what's achievable.
Right.
And I think it's a very basic kind of example, but during a lot of the rebuilds that we've been involved with United Way, it's been great to meet the people that have been tradesmen or women, those who have retired, but have been electricians or plumbers or skills, and they said, I've just been well, can you imagine, like right now on a cold day and not having your plumbing work? Hey, that's a pretty important job. And there they are in the middle of the rebuild, teaching others who have never done it, okay, this is how you need to weld, or this is what you do, or let me tell you about such and such. And it was just the light came on in their eyes. They were back. They were feeling good. They were doing something. They were helping. It was no longer they somehow felt diminished. Instead, they felt very powerful and engaged.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that those experiences are the ones that I think really motivate. And I think that that's what actually changes the human heart. And I think that that's where, when Peyton was talking about how contagious it is, because there really is a transformative effect, both for the individual, but then also on the community. And I think that it's always important, especially from hands-on perspective, and then, of course, with United Ways, you've already alluded to, Terry, is that we're really not doing charity at someone. We are working with people on the ground who see the problems in their neighborhood day in, day out. Honestly, they're the ones who are closest to the problem, and they always have the right solution. They just need the capacity. And so I think that it's really important that people understand that it's a model about working with someone.
And that's what I say. You mentioned before our friends that are working in Ferret neighborhood and in Broadmoor and things like this. But if it is a community that's saying, okay, we have this blight problem, or we really would like to turn this into one of the community gardens, we just don't know how to get started. Is that where you also lend expertise?
Yes, we have a couple of opportunities to learn more about how to do those types of projects. So not only can we connect you with kind of best practices and other models in the city, we can also give individuals a volunteer leader training, which will help them understand how to effectively and kind of efficiently lead volunteers to make the most out of the time that people do have and kind of make the most of the resources that they have to bring to the table, whether it be funding or, in-kind donations from local businesses or, mulch, soil, wood, hardware, whatever that might be. They can really do a lot and make the most of those resources.
Well, now that you've mentioned that, let's talk a little bit about it, because I'm sure there are some groups that you work with and some of our local businesses that have really, they have stepped up. They have helped you in the projects. You want to talk about them? Let's give them a little shout out.
So we've had a number of local businesses really come to the fore with our service days especially, and we've had groups ranging from larger companies like Shell and GE all the way to, smaller law firms in the city. And it really is powerful because they not only get to see kind of something outside of their office space and kind of get to explore a new part of New Orleans that they might not have been aware of, but it really adds a lot in terms of the value of the time that they're able to give back and support those smaller local organizations.
Now, I know the Shell Rebuild that we worked with friends from United Way and with Hands On and their employees, and these people were so excited. I can't tell you how many friends and employees over at Shell were just thrilled what went on and knowing how they were giving back. And as you said, getting out of the office, getting some fresh air and getting that tactile experience.
Absolutely. And, it's a good work day.
It is. It is. A workout.
We know because we do this 40 hours a week. It's a good work day for us every day.
That's why you guys are in such great shape. Huh?
Looking pretty good.
Well, listen, we've got just a couple more minutes, and I want to be sure that people who are listening today, and I want to thank you all for joining us, is talk about some of the other things that, again, let's give that web address, let's give that phone number, and what people might need to do again to get involved with you. We know, go online and you can customize things, but give them the nitty-gritty one more time if you don't mind.
Yes, we are at handsonneworleans.org is our website. You can search for any range of volunteer opportunities across the city. We are also doing a MLK project uptown in Central City that I can't not mention, which is going to be with our partners at the Central City Economic Opportunity Center. And we're helping them to do some work not only in their Head Start space, but also their senior center that's also adjacent to a Nord Park site. So we're going to really help rejuvenate their basketball court and some of their seating outside, but also add some ground game murals for the kids and hang up some artwork and murals for the senior center. And if you want to learn more about that project, just visit our website. And you can also email volunteer@handsonneworleans.org, and we'd love to brag about it. The phone number, if you want it one more time, is going to be 504-827-6854.
I'm looking at some of the other things you've been involved with STARE program. I know you're trying to help fight obesity and give people away, kids especially. It sounds a little bit like what you're doing. Get those parks ramped up. Get those kids out there. Let's get organized.
We have a partnership with the New Orleans Kids Partnership, and they do a lot of work really to help support with wraparound services for youth in the city, whether it be mentoring or exercise and healthy recreation activities. And so those are ongoing this spring through our partnership there as well.
Folks, we have so much more we could talk about. You're going to have to come back, but I do want to mention one more, and that is the disaster preparedness. Because, folks, you never know, whether it be cold weather and pipes freezing and people needing help that way, storms, you never know what's going to befall us in Southeast Louisiana.
Absolutely. And I think this piece is actually going to be, we will actually be growing this a lot with the partnership with United Way. The first part of any disaster or emergency preparedness is the preparedness piece. Typically, our fall service days really focus on getting people geared up to be ready for hurricane season. Obviously, having your emergency kit, having your evacuation plans, that type of thing. Last year, Hands On partnered with evacuteer.org. They are the official nonprofit for the city that manages citywide assisted evacuation. And I believe it was Gustav where they Evacuteer, along with all of their volunteers, were able to get about 38,000 people out of the city safely. The beauty of this, and it's kind of lessons learned out of Katrina, and then is that the evacuation process allows families to stay together and travel together along with their pets. And then, of course, if in the event of an emergency, we also can help in terms of organizing volunteers for disaster recovery projects.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And you are coming back. So many opportunities out there. We want everyone to get involved. Join Hands On. Join United Way of Southeast Louisiana. Christopher Cameron, who is the Executive Director of Hands On New Orleans. Peyton Juneau, Hands On Project Supervisor.
Thank you.
And I'm Terry Westerfield. Join me, guys, for United Way. Let's all live united.